It's
All right, let me share my screen.
minimize that.
Yes.
No, there.
Yeah. So thank you guys for being here today. Today we're gonna talk about loving one's neighbor as oneself, chapter 11 of our gospel according to Spiritism. So the Pharisees, having learned that silence the Sadducees gathered together. And one of them, a doctor of the law, came to him to ask him this question in order to test him. Master, which is the greatest commandment of the law? Jesus answered him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And this is the second, which is similar to it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets are contained in these two commandments. Matthew 22:34. So first thing that we can think about this passage is who's asking the question. So the doctor of the law, the one who's asking the question, at that time is someone who knows all the laws. So they study all the civil laws, they know all the 613 civil laws that guide and regulate the society at a time. So he knows things. And he wanted to test Jesus, or let's say he wanted to trick Jesus, or maybe even discredit him. So that's why he wanted to ask Jesus about which of these 613 laws, which one of them is the greatest commandment, the most important, right? So they are trying to trick Jesus. And then Jesus brings to us, through his answer, determination, right, for us, which is the law of love, right, by his response. That means that love is the foundation of all things. That means that it's everything. And that love is truly the foundation of Christ's teachings, right? Another thing that I think it's important in this passage is that with this, Christ brings to us the idea of a loving God. So he brings the idea of a loving father, of this new way of seeing paternity, right? A God of love, merciful, supremely just and good. And that God was completely different from the God that the people knew at that time. At that time, the God that they knew about was a punitive God. They had the idea of a punitive God. So a God that was full of wrath, a God that was that you were going to be punished if you wouldn't follow the directions that they would give you. The God they were used to fear God, right? And unfortunately, till today, we still see some religions and churches that bring that idea. They still bring that idea to us throughout traditions. They carry out this throughout the years and incite this wrong idea of a punitive God, right? But now with Spiritism, and that we learn from Jesus' teachings, we see that God is not punitive, right? We're not supposed to fear him. We're supposed to love him, and supposed to learn from him. And Christ is the personification of that love and what we need to do in our lives, what we need to follow, right, in our lives. God doesn't punish us. God instructs us. He educates us, right? He wants what's best for us. He loves us. He's pure love. So how could he not? So Jesus brings us this new concept about God, pure love and loving Father. And Jesus also brings us the truth, right? And teach us this love. And the Spiritism comes to bring us the details of when Jesus came to earth. Spiritism helps us to dismantle like all the parables and all the teachings and all Jesus' examples, right? And what about the neighbor that was supposed to love? I think that's the kind of the tricky part because it's not only physically speaking, like who's next to me. Sometimes even somebody's next to you and you don't like that person. And sometimes someone who lives far away, especially us Brazilians, we have our families and friends in Brazil, and they have our hearts, right? Somebody that's literally next to me, that person doesn't have my heart. So it's something that we need to work on and think about. To whom do we offer our best? You know, our support, our love, our time. So anyway, Jesus came to teach us about this love. And now we have this knowledge, right? And we have this understanding. And what are we missing? Now we are mixing some reflection. So we are doing this, reflecting, thinking, and trying to feel it. Maybe we are starting to feel. I think we are in the right direction, but it's still a long way to go, right? And now when I was studying this, I remember this high-level spirit, Alcione, from the book Renunciation. I don't know if everyone, I know some people have, but if everyone had the opportunity to read this book. And Alcione said, the Christ message must be learned, pondered, felt, and lived. And I think when we started Spiritism, we learned, because we're here, we're learning, so we kind of rationalized it. We have that knowledge. Pondered, that means we are reflecting, we are thinking, we are meditating, right? And then we start feeling it. And I just between feeling it and believing it, there's still a gap that we need to work on. And we need to incorporate that in our lives. I feel like sometimes, since we are going into the right direction, we feel it and we live it. Sometimes we don't feel it and we don't live it. So it's just like for us to reflect on this. And Alcione, I have to say, I have to tell this. I don't know if Anna's here, but Anna have heard me say a couple of times about Alcione, because I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm so screwed because she's so high level. She is, if you read the book, she suffers a bunch. And when she was deciding to come to reincarnate on Earth to help her friends and her dear ones, she meets with high order spirits, and they ask her, "You sure you want to do this? You're, you're gonna suffer, so prepare yourself." And she's like, "No, yes, this is what Jesus wants us to do, right? That's why she's a high level spirit." And then she comes to Earth, and then she helps the people. And she was always conscientious. She was always praying. She was devoted all the time. She was faithful. She was kind. She was loving, and she showed the greatest self-denial and renunciation that that we've seen. So yeah, Christ's message must be learned, pondered, felt, and lived, and she actually lived throughout the whole story in the book, and you can tell. And we are not there yet, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So we have to put into perspective these things, and that's what happened to me when I read the book, because I felt like I'm so screwed because I have so much work to do. But but it's good in a good way, right? To think, well, I have work to do, obviously, and I'll get there at some point. But that helped me to put my life into perspective, my conscience, my actions, change my perspective on things. And I think that's what it's about for us to, try our best, right? And this is what Jesus wants from us, right? And then when we feel the love, I feel like we understand it, and then we feel it. We have this understanding that we are going in the right direction, right? And it's a great step forward, at least. But we have to do the work. And what is the next step? So if you feel it, you have to start living it. And to start living it, you have to start changing. And so how do you react when someone treats you bad? How do you react to, I don't know, someone cuts you in front of you? Do you yell? Do you get mad? What do you do? Do you get back at the person? How do you feel? What do you do? So that's when we start like putting things into perspective and reflecting more and readjusting our responses according to Jesus' teachings, and readjusting our lives, right? And self-knowledge is very important here. If we don't know ourselves, how are we going to do the work that we're supposed to do? It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, sacrifice, courage to recognize in ourselves our moral imperfections and then change. Yeah. But here's the good news, right? When you start changing your behavior, your attitudes, you treat the way you see people. You change the way you treat people. You change the way you see people. You change your relationships. You change your life. Okay? And that's what expected from us, right? And we start maybe doing to others good things. Maybe we start not doing bad things, which is one step, but even going beyond that, doing to others what we would want them to do to us. Treat them like we want to be treated. And that is an expression of charity. That is, do all the good that is within our ability to do the good. Yeah. So what's the extent of this one's neighbor? Since we've been talking about that. So what Jesus means by that? That's the whole humankind. So not just somebody who's next to you or your dear family in Brazil, but everyone, all humankind, right? And the more we practice this, loving one neighbors as you love yourself, do to others what you want them to do to you, and that helps us to, that leads us to the destruction of selfishness. And how can we get closer to God if we don't practice this charity, if we don't practice love every day in our lives? Little thing. Um, talking to someone in need, helping a hand, you know, little details, like Paul said, just little details that you do every day in your lives. That is loving our neighbors. It's not just grand gestures, like going to Africa and help all the misery that's out there, like all the people. That could be awesome, but just for a few people, like you're able to do that. But for us, just little things that we can do every day. You know, to change ourselves, to help someone, and maybe change that someone, help that person change as well, right? And Jesus showed us that by all his examples, his teachings, everything that he went through. He went through a lot when he was incarnated on earth on his mission. He showed us the love is the divine essence. Right? The love is the most important lesson that we need to learn and practice. And so how can we ask for mercy if we don't show mercy to someone? How can we ask for forgiveness? Or how do you want to be forgiven if we don't forgive? How can we be respected if we don't respect? How can we, how do we want people to treat us well if we don't treat everyone well? Right? So yeah, Emmanuel, in this passage, in his message actually about selfishness in the gospel, he writes, selfishness that plague on humankind must disappear from the earth, whose moral progress it hinders. So selfishness is the plague of society. Selfishness is the negation of charity. That's in the gospel, right? It's an obstacle that we must overcome. Also in the Spirit's book, question 785, Kardec asks, what is the greatest obstacle to progress? And the Spirit replied, yes. I am referring to moral progress, since intellectual progress is always occurring. Progress itself seems at first glance to double the intensity of these two vices by developing ambition and the love of wealth. But this in turn incites persons to pursue research that enlightens their spirits. It is thus that everything is related in the moral world as well as in the physical. And that good is brought out of evil itself. But this state of things will only last for a while. It will change as people better understand that beyond the enjoyment of earthly wealth, there is an infinitely greater and long-lasting bliss. So all evil derives from selfishness. My selfishness is part of our personalities. We must acknowledge that. That's why also Emmanuel says more courage is needed to overcome oneself than to overcome other people. Right. And Joanna de Angelis also says that to us, like, it's you with yourself. The whole thing is you with yourself. Know yourself. And also in the Spiritist book, that's Socrates, I say, Hey, know yourself. It's one of the questions there. I don't remember which one. But yeah. So that's why self-knowledge is so important, right? We have to know ourselves. We need to reflect on ourselves. Take time every day, a little bit, to think, oh, or end of the day, how did I do today? How was my day? Oh, I didn't do that well in that meeting with that person. That's not good. Like trying to think through things, like truly see things, because we tend to deny it. Like, oh no, because that person did it. And I'm like, it wasn't me. No, you're perfect, right? Didn't do anything. No, that was his fault. What about your participation in that discussion, in that situation, right? We play our part, definitely. Yeah. But we can change what we don't know. That's within us, right? So that's why we need a reflection, because you have to see, bring to awareness to your conscience, right? No, I'm not envy, but really, like think again. But we tend to deny it. So how am I going to change if I deny it? If I don't see it? Right? So we have to learn to see it also. But there is good news. One day we will get there. One day we will be free from all vices. We will be free from selfishness, the selfishness that dominates us. We will live as truly brothers and sisters, right? We won't do evil things to one another anymore. We won't hurt each other. We won't do wars. We will help each other. We will live through fraternity and solidarity. We will live in a better world. And we are going in that direction, although it seems like the world is crazy these days, and it is, but things are moving forward. This is happening. And that is true. Even though sometimes we kind of get not that motivated about it. We see like so many bad things. It was like really, until when? But it's part of the process. Right? And when we see something bad happening, you can pray. We have this tool in hand, right? The power of the prayer that is so important in our lives. And Jesus, throughout his examples, he showed us how to love. He showed us what to do. And it's up to us now to do this work that needs to be done. And we can do this. Right? We can do this. And I had one more slide. But I'm going to tell you this. We have reincarnation that helps us, right? Reincarnation helps us to learn, to grow, to study, to help others. Our instincts evolve, transform, right? Transform into feelings, transform into love, right? To transform into fraternity, So that's why we keep coming back. So as we grow and learn how to respect others, how to help more, these feelings that transform into love. Right? So reincarnation is one of these tools that we have to apply, to practice the love that we learn. And also it helps us to continue to search our self-knowledge, to continue to work on ourselves, to be less selfish, to practice more charity, to be more fraternal. Reincarnation is the opportunity that we have to progress, to overcome our moral imperfections, readjust family issues. Nobody comes in the wrong address. Nobody's born in the wrong address, right? We can repair our wrongdoings. We can practice the love again. It's a virtuous, cycle, or, the more we practice, the more we grow, the more we evolve, the better we get, right? We improve ourselves, and we help the world, we help society, right? And then we start cultivating better thoughts, cultivating better habits, the habit of maintaining good thoughts and praying, keeping this connection with our spiritual friends, our mentors, our dear and beloved, merciful Father. Okay? So everyday work. Right? That's what I have for you guys. How talk. I don't know if I want to hear comments. This is so important, and the idea is for us also to interact and share things. Okay.
Adriana,
Thank you.
we want to open to comments and questions to those one on.
Yeah, if you.
And I can begin. But I don't know if people can hear us very well, but I'm going to speak a little bit out loud. Let us know if you can hear as well from Adriana's phone. But I think you talk a little bit about who is the neighbor and what it is, especially what it is loving the neighbor when we don't like our neighbor.
Yeah.
Right. So could you kind of reflect a bit on what it means, like loving our neighbor when a neighbor is not a good neighbor to us, at least, at least in our point of view. So how do we exercise that loving, loving our neighbor?
That's tricky because we unfortunately are not capable of loving everybody the way that Jesus is, because he showed us the unconditional love. He loved everybody. So even at a time, what they call like the Samaritans, the people, the Samaritans were considered impure people, like low-level people, like inferior, like something like that. And Jesus went to and he taught us the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? To show us like, no, we're supposed to love everybody. But it's hard because we're not there yet. But at least we can try. I know it's really hard when you have no affinity with someone. It's really hard, like, to try to have or send good thoughts towards a person. It's really hard. Like politicians. Who likes politicians? It's hard, right? But it's an effort. It's at least try not to think good things, try not to think bad things. That's one step. At least try that. I would say like baby steps, like, I don't like that person, I don't like that person. Fine, I don't like the person. Let them be, and I'll live my life. And one day you maybe be saying a little prayer for the person, like, oh, I hope he does better. Oh, sure. It's baby steps, right? Because it's really hard. I mean, we're not there yet, but we'll get there. It takes time. Like I said, sacrifice, efforts, every day, every day, every day. One day we'll be Alciones.
Sometimes it's even hard to love those that we love. right?
Sometimes, yeah, exactly. We have discussions, we have, you know, what?
Let's change the microphone. See if it captures this.
Let me try some.
There's some microphone.
If we're just doing a technical adjustment here.
Can you guys hear better?
Can you hear us?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear.
Is it better?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it better now?
Yes. I think they can hear it.
Okay.
But can you hear them a bit louder?
No, because it's coming from
Oh, I
their
see.
computer.
Okay.
Just like that, I'll just connect my computer. Yeah, but they're hearing from there.
Okay, so, yeah, so Adriana, just as you were explaining to us, right, I just added, yeah, as you said, it's a journey, which is not easy. It's easier said than done, because sometimes we have, we are irritated and we have not loving feelings to those that we love, right? Let alone those that we still don't love yet, right?
We are a work in progress. We are a work in progress. Sometimes we are oscillate. Sometimes we are better. Sometimes, there are days like up and down, and that's part of the journey. But one day will be only it'll be better.
So I think to Nino's question, right, you said, who's our neighbor, right? So the neighbor could be the one we share the house with, we share the bed with, we share the table with, right? We share the desks at work with, right?
It's literally anybody.
Right.
That's the idea. The law of love is supposed to apply to all humankind. But it's very easy for us to love someone that we are fond of. And it's very easy not to love someone that it's difficult for.
Sometimes I think we need to at least try to understand why they have this kind of behavior with us, for example, or try to put in their places, right? We don't need to agree with them, but just to try to
Understand their perspective.
their perspective, why they are
Help
having
into somebody else.
yeah.
Where they're coming from, right?
Or they
Sometimes
have
to them you were the divorce.
But we can be in this position for sure.
And to your point, Adriana, right? I think that you righteously, right, said it's great for you to remind us that we have to know ourselves. Because if we don't know ourselves, like Renata said, we may think that they are difficult. And if we really look at the mirror, which is a difficult thing to do because we're probably gonna find things that we don't like about ourselves, right? And maybe we are the difficult one, right? But the first step actually to maybe change and open our hearts, right? I think the point you made is great, right? As you said, know yourself. Because maybe we are the jealous one. We are the envious one. We are the super selfish, the impatient, right? Come on, hurry up. I don't have much time. We're all right. It's that self introspection that I think few of us really do. And when we do, we don't like it, and and then maybe
not doing.
Right.
But yeah.
Adriana,
The chat.
can you hear me, Adriana?
Yeah, can you speak a little? We can, but if you could speak a little louder, Joanna, right?
Yeah, that's Joanna.
Because we're
No,
having
I was,
technical issues here. We always
no,
do.
it's okay. Thank you so much for the lecture. It was really inspiring. But I was wondering, many times when we look at this sentence, love your neighbor as oneself, we often focus all our thoughts on how to love our neighbors. And we often forget that the whole sentence has a second part, which is as oneself. So I don't know, can you bring us some thought about this? Because I feel sometimes that it's hard to love others when you don't have this love inside of you and when you don't love yourself. I don't know, it was just a reflection on that.
Loving for oneself, it's a little tricky because we do love ourselves, otherwise we wouldn't be selfish. And I think that we love ourselves so much, I would say, that it takes us to being selfish for people. Because we only care about ourselves. We only want to do what matters to us. We only want to do what's kind of we think is best for us. And that's selfishness, but I think that's kind of related to our loving ourselves. You know what I mean? Well, we need to do the work is like put this energy that we love ourselves so much that I care about only me and shift the direction, right? So I know if I can love myself so much and care about me so much, how can I not like care about somebody else? You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I was just wondering if this selfishness is the real love, because once we are selfish, we are hurting our souls, right? We're not indeed loving ourselves, because when we love ourselves, we wouldn't. If we love ourselves, we wouldn't be selfish, because this is something that is hurting. It's against the law. It's hurting us. So in the end, sometimes we think that the selfishness is an excess of love, but maybe it's not, because when we love ourselves, we want to get free from all these bad feelings, from all these hard things, you know. And maybe this is what Jesus wanted to talk about in the sentence, like to truly love yourself. Then you have to get rid of all this the selfishness, the pride, the vanity, everything that hurts your soul, that it's against the law. And then when you get to this point, you will be able to give the true love to your neighbor. You know, that was my reflection while you were speaking. I don't know, just a thought.
So, Adriana, excuse me. Hey, hello.
Of all the material possessions that we have, we are so material, so focused on the material thing that's why we are selfish, right? Because this is also related. That's in the spirit book. It's related to our attachment to physical things, to our possession, to our earthly passions, to our need for things. So that's not good, obviously, right? That's not love. That's being attached, materially speaking, to things, and, you know, to material possessions and things. Elena has.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adriana, for the presentation. So coming with Joanna's question, my thought was, and taking a point of your presentation, which is know thyself. When we know ourselves, we understand our limitations, we understand our talents, and we develop a sense of self-respect that allows us to.
Can you speak a little louder?
Of course.
Thank you.
And so my thought was, when we and taking from Adriana's presentation was the point she made of knowing ourselves, know thyself, was that when we embark on a journey of self searching and self-knowledge and getting to know who we really are, we develop good boundaries, we develop self-respect, because we understand who we are and we have clarity about that. So we are in a good space, so to say. And when we do that, we are able to offer that respect to others, because now we know the space we occupy and we know what our limitations are. And we develop compassion for others exactly because we can see ourselves, the shadow and the light of who we are. So we understand that everyone around us has that. And that compassion is what will allow us to offer that love to others, just like we love ourselves. So, and my other point in your presentation that made me question not what you were saying, but like made me think, was like when we focus so much on the selfishness as the source of all evil, I was thinking, wouldn't the source of all evil be a lack of consciousness? Because exactly because we don't have the consciousness of what else can we be, we are stuck on that very basic pursuit of the material part of life.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I mentioned also that because as we reincarnate, we have instincts, right? And those instincts continue to develop and grow, and they transform themselves into the instincts transform into feeling, to better feeling. As we grow, as we evolve, those feelings transform one day into love. So that's how I think we also overcome those bad inclinations that we have, like those instincts, those, the selfishness, the evil things that we do.
Hey, could you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like the point that Adriana brought about our interpretation about love, because considering our individual level of spiritual maturity, each one of us want to be a different point of view about what love is. So if considering my level of spirituality, love means do everything to myself. Of course, it is selfishness, but that's my level. And that's the reason because Jesus came in to show us that our interpretation about love is not the right one. So because when we see like a little kid, 2 years old, 3 years old, he wants everything for themselves. This is mine. I will not share. I don't want to share my mom. I don't want to share my dad. But and then I don't want to share my bread. But and then when the mother or the father bring the kid and say, so okay, let's imagine now that you don't have this. Would you like someone to give you this to you? Oh yes. Why you don't share? And then that point we are teaching them that love means sharing. Love means I do to others what I like to do for me. And that's exactly what Jesus did when he came here. He came here to teach us that our point of view, our concept about love is not the divine love. And then I think it's a sick way of love. It is, but it is love considering our level of spirituality. And then I like this point of view because for example, if it wasn't love, even though in a wrong perspective, how could Jesus say love one another as you love yourself? Because if you don't love yourself, the first part is impossible, right? And then that's the reason because I think that it does make sense what you said. So what we have to do is take all those teachings, all those concepts about what love really is, and then we're going to modify and understand that the true love is when we share. It's not you only take care about ourselves or about our family, because many people, they only do good for their own family. Oh, this is my blood, I'm going to help. oh, this person is not my problem, it's not my blood. And then Jesus is asking us, inviting us to amplify this concept of love. But I do understand your point of view, and then I never thought about that before. And thank you so much, because it does make a lot of sense for me. And then I think if we go back in time and see everything that Jesus was teaching us was exactly this: get out of your limited point of view about love, and see this in the divine perspective, and love others, to others what you'd like to do to you. Of course, if I wanted the best car, I'm gonna wish the same for my neighbor. If I want the best food, I'm gonna wish the same, I'm gonna help. And then I really like this new point of view. And then thank you so much.
More questions?
That love your neighbor to treat them as he would be treated, reflecting the divine law. Excellent case of the common problem. And Martha, that's our discussion about how loving others is crucial for a spiritual growth. Very hard to do because you cannot give to others what you do not already have. Yeah. Nice living. Thank you for me.
And I just want to thank you also, for bringing us the topic, for being this very nice summary of loving one another. And invite everyone else who's on the call. I think you can stop the recording at this point because I'm going to move the fast. But invite everyone else